proud country, a country with a rich history, a country which has put up the best Women's World Cup ever, and I'm very happy and proud of that.
I can't remember the last time I saw as many green and gold scarves in this building. Why don't we take that as a cue to introduce our political panel. Joining us today, Labor MP for the Sydney seat of Reid, Sally Situ's back, and Liberal MP for Flinders, Zoe McKenzie. Sally, I think you were out early in football festival mode here in Canberra.
Yes, I was playing very badly, but with great enthusiasm. And thank you to the under-23 Matildas for joining us. They were fantastic.
And there was very strong support shown across all parties, I think, down at the Members' Hall. Why don't we move on to more regular political topics? RBA, interest rate pain. There's plenty of it going around, Sally Situ. In the next few weeks, the energy bill relief rolls out the door from the federal government, but the RBA in its statement yesterday indicates that it's now looking out to late 2025 before inflation comes back in the target range. Is it apparent to you that more and ongoing support will be needed, particularly around the energy bill component of this price pressure?
I think many households in Australia would have breathed a sigh of relief when the RBA decided not to lift rates. What we should be doing as a responsible government is three things when it comes to inflation. One is providing, like you said, cost of living relief where we can in a targeted manner. And we are doing that through increases in job seeker and rent assistance, as well as making childcare more affordable and medicines cheaper. And, like you said, providing a rebate on energy to those who most need it. The second point to that is to make sure that as a government we are working hand in hand with the Reserve Bank to ensure that we are not adding to inflation. Right. And we can see that inflation is trending down in the right direction, and we know that the Governor of the Reserve Bank has said that the previous budget that was released by the Albanese Labor government is not adding to inflation, it is helping to put downward pressure on inflation. Yep. But the third key point to all of this is to make sure that we are seeing productivity growth. And that is something that the Coalition did not look at. Since 2018, productivity is flatlined, and we have made sure that we are concentrating our efforts on productivity growth by providing fee-free TAFE places and encouraging more women into the workforce. And we are seeing a record number of women go to full-time employment, and that's fantastic.
Well, that is the more stubborn element, isn't it? Getting productivity going. It's proved elusive for successive governments for a number of years now. But Zoe McKenzie, on the question of household bill support, particularly around energy, are you or would you back subsequent packages coming through, if well timed and well calibrated, as Sally says, to lower that pain?
The problem we've got is it's not just energy. The inflationary pressure is affecting everything. Milk's up, cheese is up, bread is up, holiday costs are up, gas is up, electricity is up. I got 2 letters from constituents last week saying, I've just got an energy bill rise of 30%. I'm a pensioner, I'm on a fixed income, there's nothing I can do with this, where am I meant to find the money for it? And of course one of the suggestions we made in relation to the government's budget was to enable people who might be on a pension to be able to go and work in the family business, help their daughter out in their local cafe if she's the cafe owner, but they've refused to do that. So we're not helping people put more money in their own pocket, and yet what's in the pocket is depleting ever more quickly. I know you had the Shadow Treasurer on a while ago, and the point he made, $25,000 a year must be found after tax to meet the 11 interest rate rises since this government was elected. $25,000 after tax. Where does anyone find an increase of $50,000 in their income overnight when their interest payments go from 2% to 8%, which is what they're facing now?
Okay, since you reference Angus Taylor, he describes current settings on interest rates as basically the new normal. You wouldn't be banking, or would you be banking on any
well, these are the highest. These are the highest they've been since 2011. It is it is an enormous shock to the 800,000 mortgage holders that are moving from that 2% to 7, 8, 9%, depending on where they're going. And the banks will be quite blunt with you, saying they expect more to come. Have a conversation about fixed rates, they'll say, oh, get in now because there'll be more coming down the track. So there's more bad news rather than less.
And you'd be experiencing that with constituents as well, I imagine, Sally. Those who are making the journey from fixed rates to variable, some haven't yet felt the pinch of these interest rate rises, have they? Because of the lag effect of making that transition. There's more to come where this lies.
There's no doubt that families and households are feeling financial pressure at the moment. I know in my electorate about 40% of renters are experiencing rental stress. So we understand that this is a real pressure for many families, but what we need to do is make sure that we are providing them relief. And if you do that through things like cheaper childcare, that is a productivity gain. That is getting more people back into the workforce.
Is that being delivered, by the way? Sorry to interrupt, but there is anecdotal evidence, and I know the ACCC is looking at it, that fees have gone up in conjunction with the increased subsidies.
I think what we need to make sure we're doing when it comes to childcare is a couple of things. One is that we are lifting the childcare subsidy, and the other key thing to this is making sure that we're encouraging more people to become early educators. And that's what we're doing with the fee-free TAFE places. So at the moment, there is a lack of spaces, and that's because we don't have enough childcare workers in there.
Yeah.
So we need to be encouraging more people to get into childcare and provide that early education that our young people need.
Yeah, childcare, aged care, there are real pinch points on the labour force at the moment. Zoe McKenzie, I think you've got in front of you a rather interesting Senate committee report that has come out, which introduces a discussion for all of us here on social media platform bans. So TikTok already not allowed on government-owned devices. There is interest there in setting up processes where you could continue to outlaw platforms. The next one, perhaps, WeChat. Is that a good thing? Should it happen like that?
The discussion is really about transparency. So what this points out is, yes, TikTok has been banned on government-issued devices, but should equally not be on devices that hold government data. So if you're a contractor to the government, it suggests that you should not have TikTok on it as well. It also looks through WeChat, and in particular makes observations about WeChat's failure to engage in this process. To be fair, there were some who turned up and had good, fulsome conversations with the senators, and some who were less fulsome in their presentation and explanation. What the report really calls for is transparency. So explaining who has access to the data on the website, whether you are owned by a particular government, whether you are at the direction of a particular government. So it basically says transparency first before moving to a ban, but says as an absolute last resort, that may be something that needs to be considered. The important thing to remember as well, it was not just bipartisan, it was tripartisan.
Yes.
It had Labor, Liberal and the Greens signing up, which is rare and commendable. I certainly commend Senator James Paterson, who led a lot of the work in this
He
one.
did hold them together, but Sally, I think Labor members, and speak for yourself, not being in the Senate, but they're a little bit more reserved about what they called a whack-a-mole approach. Like, you deal with TikTok and then you deal with WeChat. Do you find it a hard sell to say, or would you find it a hard sell to say to constituents, we have to, keep blocking out and closing off very popular social media apps?
This is an important conversation that we need to be having, and I am pleased that there is this report and the government's considering the recommendations, because foreign interference is one of the biggest challenges to our national security. But I'd make 2 points on this, Greg. One is that we should have a full and open and frank discussion about this, but we need to make sure that this does not cast an air of general suspicion over people who look like me or who are from migrant communities.
You think that's a risk?
I think that is a real risk if we do not handle this conversation correctly, because ultimately that undermines our democracy. It also undermines our migrant communities are our greatest assets when it comes to detecting and guarding against foreign interference, and we need to make sure that we are working with them. The other important point I'd make to this is that this is a serious and important discussion that we ought to be having, and I think we all need to keep that clear, And we shouldn't be jumping on Sky News after dark like the Shadow Minister, Senator James Patterson did, treating this like a John le Carre spy thriller. We ought to be having a serious conversation with this, and that's exactly what I am doing. I've actively sought to get briefings and have gotten briefings on foreign interference, and I'd encourage all parliamentarians to do that, because we all have a duty to guard against this and to detect it.
And have you been surprised? I don't have a lot of time to take a deep dive on this, but you obviously sought answers. Have you changed your attitude at all in light of what authorities have told you?
Not changed my attitude, because I always knew about this as a threat, but certainly changed my habits and some of the things that they do, as well as my staff. And this is something that we need all Australians to be part of, and we need to bring them all into that conversation. So this is about WeChat, yes, but there is a broader discussion for us to be having, and we need to have that in a nuanced and sophisticated manner.
A very interesting perspective. Thank you for sharing it on the program. A very quick last word for you on that. Would you acknowledge those
beyond
risks?
WeChat, it's actually artificial intelligence will be an even greater threat. So artificial intelligence, and particularly generative AI, will produce streams of text from who knows where, influenced by who knows whom. So at the moment we might have a couple of apps that we can point to that have global popularity, but in 2, 5, 10 years' time, it's a whole different ballgame.
God knows what that looks like, but we'll get there when we get there. Sally Situ, Zoe McKenzie, we'd love to talk about more today, but we'll leave it there and get you back again before too long. Thanks for joining us.